As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning and great morning to everyone, regardless of where you might be on the planet. Here in the North America, and particularly in America, today is a federal holiday, Juneteenth. So we're celebrating Juneteenth in a really, in my mind, such an appropriate way in terms of not waiting to get information, seizing information and sharing information as soon as it's available to us. Particularly, we're going to talk about prostate cancer, and when we have Right Reverend Kenneth Monroe sharing his story and telling his story. And again, in honor of Juneteenth, the Juneteenth celebration, it's really a pleasure to do this show on this day. Right Reverend Kenneth Monroe is a senior bishop of the Amy Zion Church and presiding prelate on Eastern North Carolina Episcopal District. And we're joined by Reverend Dr. Leroy O. Perry Jr. Reverend Perry is a pastor of St. Stephen's Amy Zion Church and cultural ambassador to the Yale Clinic program. As well, we have Reverend Elvin Clayton. I won't mention Reverend Clayton's middle name. He has a name that I actually like because it conveys speed. It conveys electricity. It conveys communication, because sometimes we do have to be speedy and prompt, and also seize the moment. So Reverend Elvin Clayton is with us, pastor of Walters Memorial Amy Zion Church and cultural ambassador to the Yale Clinical Research Program. We're going to start off with Reverend Perry sharing the rationale for telling our story series. And again, Reverend Kenneth Monroe, welcome, and it's really a pleasure to kind of have you join with us and share with us the speedy information, the informative information, the cogent information, and the necessary information. Reverend Perry?
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So our rationale for having this program, or this series of programs, in terms of telling our story, is basically to inform the underserved, underprivileged, and sometimes marginalized populations that we deal with as to our story. And when we tell our story, it's nothing like it. No one can tell our story but us. It's like Kenny, what Dr. Kennedy said to me once. He said, God can write his name on 1 billion stars, but it's nothing like a sinner telling his story. It doesn't compare. And so what we want people to understand is that as marginalized Black people, minority populations, we go through things, and sometimes people don't hear us and they don't know all of the intricacies of what we go through. But when they can hear us, hopefully it will give them hope and inspire them to seek out the science, to go with the faith, that we might be able to change our outcomes in terms of health within our community. So we're so happy that you're here to be with us, because you have national recognition. You're a man of, I'm taking Reverend Clayton's job, but let me just say, you telling your story will help a whole lot of brothers to do the right thing, to get their checkups, to look at this seriously. So we thank you. And I'm going to pass the baton to my friend, Dr. Clayton.
Good morning, and happy belated Father's Day to you fathers. It is with tremendous joy to have Bishop Monroe with us this morning. Not only one of our Episcopal leaders, but he's a longtime friend. He pastored the Metropolitan Church in Hartford when I was pastoring Redeemers in Plainville. And we've had a lot of fun together. We shared trips together. And This is going to be a wonderful journey today, I do believe. But let me just say this. In July 2004, he was elected bishop, the 95th in succession of the AME Zion Church. And he was assigned at that time to Western West Africa District, or Western West Africa Episcopal District. Countries as Ghana, Togo, Liberia, and I believe I'm going to say this right, Cote d'Ivoire. Did I say that correctly, Bishop?
Oh,
Amen. Well, you know, but when Dr. Perry said that he's nationally known, he's internationally known. And it is with great pleasure that we have him with us today. And he is our senior bishop. And this is one office you can't run for, you can't politic for, you can't pay for it. He's the senior bishop because, first of all, God allowed him to get elected. And then he has more tenure than anyone else on the Board of Bishops. And we thank God that God has elevated him to this position. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bishop.
Tremendous. Bishop, let's jump right in and share with us, if you would, your episodes and segments and segues and challenges with your health journey, and particularly what are some of the stigmas or obstacles that might have been connected with your diagnosis of prostate cancer. It affects so many of us, so many of our friends. I'm a thriver. I'm not a survivor, but I'm a thriver also of prostate cancer. But I'm really interested in hearing about your health journey saga.
Oh, well, thank you for having me as a person to talk about this experience. During the time that I discovered I had prostate cancer, really didn't discover that right off. I had, in the year 2000, that I had been in Hartford, Connecticut for about 6 years. And I really didn't have the doctor that I was pleased with. Started with, I was having some unusual times at night, going to the bathroom quite frequently. And I say this because I was concerned. Medical doctor I had was, I don't know if he was concerned as much as I was, but I didn't feel well. And that can be a problem sometimes. Because depending on who your doctor is, they can have such a low misdiagnosis. I had a nurse in the church where I was pastoring, and I mentioned it to her about I need another doctor. And he said to me, I'll find you one. And she did, and got an appointment, and I went there. Just happened to be sort of African, he was African-American, but he was from the island. But he diagnosed me, and, you know, I was 49. Didn't think about stuff like that. Didn't realize that my father had difficulty with his prostate as well. And later on, my youngest brother had same problem. And what happened with me when I went to the doctor, I never forget, I was at the office, and secretary indicated that your doctor is trying to get up with you. Now, you know, that for anybody, that's not bothering me. I don't want to hear from no doctor unless I go to see him. But he was trying to reach me because he wanted me to see a urologist.
Yes.
And once I went to the urologist, they did a biopsy, discovered that my PSA 12.8. And I was very, it still didn't bother me that much. Really didn't. I did, I kept a lot of this from my wife, didn't tell her right off. I have a book out, it's called The Adventures of Uncertainty, Making the Impossible Possible. And in that book, I've said, I didn't tell my wife things like that about my health because she gets upset if I had a cold. So I just kind of kept it on the low until I had this biopsy, and the urologist said to me, I want you to come in with your wife. Yes. And we can discuss how we're going to proceed. Of course, as you know, there's several ways to treat it.
Yes.
Seeds. Now, you have to remember, I'd had surgery April 4, 2001. That's 21 years ago.
Yes.
And I realized that the treatments now has advanced.
Yes.
To some degree. He said to me, he said, Pastor, you could either not bother it. It's a slow cancer. And it's in its infant stages. Or you could take the seeds and it will hard it to some degree. Or you can do radical surgery. I chose radical surgery because I just couldn't live knowing that's in me. I just couldn't have that in my mind.
Yes.
I just like having a bomb inside of you and won't go off. So I just didn't want that in me. I don't want to go on, and I knew there would be some concerns, and that's why he talked. He was a tremendous doctor. I have to give him credit. He was with me, went through every detail, talked to me about that. And we did have the surgery. Now, following that, which I thought was very important, I did not, this secret. I shared it with my congregation. I had several people come in and talk to my men about it. And the fortunate thing about that, I discovered that there were so many other men who were going through the same thing.
That's right.
And you never would know, because for some reason, I don't know if we feel ashamed or we feel adequate once something like that comes to us. But as a servant of people,
yes,
I felt that it was necessary for me to share that with as many people as possible. And for a long time, even after I had surgery, went to Africa, served as Africa for 4 years. After Africa, I came to South Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, and Kentucky. I served all of that time, and I came I would come back every year for an exam at my urologist.
Good.
I always came back. I said, man, you the one who got me like this, so I needed you to come back and check on me. I just recently stopped going to him. Just about a couple of years ago, about the time of the pandemic, I just didn't go. But I was for almost 20 years, I went to the same urologist. I think he's still practicing. Last time we talked to each other, he said, Pastor, last time I saw you, you had hair. I said, the last time I saw you, you had black hair, and your hair is white now. So in a good 15 to 20 year span, I stayed with that doctor. Now, my regular physician now does an annual check on me every year. I've had no problems at all, other than the normal experiences you have after the surgery. Since then, I've known at least 2 of my colleagues have experienced the same thing. And it was interesting that they called me and talked to me about it. I must say, while I was going through that experience, to have people who experienced it also,
That's right.
they were tremendous support during that time. I don't want to call any names, but there were several people in the Hartford community that connected with me when I was going through recovery piece. They call me every day. So support is important.
Yes.
And one thing, I don't think there's anything we need to be ashamed of or anything like that. My wife, get back to her, we discussed this piece, and I think it's important for those persons who are married, partners, and that kind of thing. They need to be involved in the decision making because they have to live with that. My wife said to me, she'd rather have me. We've been married 47 years. And we're still happily married. We're grateful for that.
Excellent.
And so that's part of my experience. And I've gone a lot of places since then. And I thank God for allowing me to stay around so I could encourage other people who experience the same thing. It can be very upsetting, but if you understand purpose in life, you're able to help people understand you can live tremendous things.
Say a little bit more, if you would, Bishop, about the God part and how it's instrumental from your standpoint regarding the health journey, because it's so important regardless of whatever medical definition we might be besieged with or characterized with. There's an aspect of mental healing that I believe a person doesn't necessarily believe in God. Certainly, there's something about your mental outlook and your belief system that can influence your health journey. I guess you referenced God, and I just wonder whether you could elaborate a little bit more. And
you don't want me to preach, I know.
Well, we got time. We got time. Sometimes some people might not have gotten the same
I think I understand what you're saying. Faith is so important. So important. And faith is not something we have that just designed to keep us here. Faith is something we have that to reassure us that we will be well regardless of what we go through. I say that because my life, I was a sickly boy coming up. Came up, people did not expect me to finish high school.
Mm.
And I don't know, I thought God had more me to do, just live for myself. Even as a young preacher, I started preaching when I was 17 years. And I say people all the time, didn't know what I was doing. But I knew I had to do something. Or something was dealing with me about where I need to do and go in life. Really didn't know, but every action I took, I looked to God to help me get through. I was, you have to understand, I was told I wouldn't finish high school. Listen, I'll tell you something else. My faith is strong. I tell folks this.
Yes.
Because, believe it or not, I spent, back in the early 60s, late 60s and 70s, particularly middle 60s, I was sick and no one could understand what was going on with me. I had convulsion seizures. And it got so bad, I had grand mal seizures. That's the worst kind. And I had so many seizures and going on in my life. As a young child, I didn't know nothing to do but pray. And trust that God would help me understand what was going on with me. I wind up in Dorothea Dix Hospital, which is a mental institution, for several months. I didn't realize all of that had taken place until I woke up one night laying on the floor in a hospital room on a mattress. I could not walk. I didn't have enough strength to even get up on my own. I'm laying on the floor. And I never forget, I crawled to the door of that hospital room.
Yes.
And I could only pick up one of my hand and just let it fall to the door to knock on the door for somebody to come see about me. I went through that experience. And God doesn't take us through stuff like that. Or I put it this way, God does not allow us to go through stuff like that. Sometimes God ain't putting that on us. We go through it to find God.
My.
Yeah.
When we go through things like that, it helps us to turn to God, because we may not ever turn to God until we go through something that is beyond us. And when we turn to Him, sincerely turn to Him, He's not a musician that will take things away from us. But He's there to help us get through it because He has purpose for us. He has purpose for us. I'm not here just to be for me. When this new challenge of prostate cancer came, and I always say that God calls us, but He doesn't stop. Sometimes He allows something to come into our lives for us to get His attention or get our attention. so that he's taken us to a level of understanding purpose. And I see that as like that. You know, when that happened, I said, what in the world? What that happened to me for? I'm only 49 years old. What happened to me? But it helped me to understand that life is so much more to life, and so much for me to be involved in helping people come to understand life and why God placed us in this. It's a walk of faith. So I walked through prostate cancer and learned to keep. I got a saying that I tell people all the time: stay focused, serve faithfully, stand firm on the principles of your faith. Say that all the time. I always tell people all the time, you know, God is, you know, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Why do you say that? Why do you say that and don't believe it? Don't try to employ it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just thank God for the many things that He's allowed me to experience and help other people experience. Because, you know, we think we are here on this earth to be recipients of what God has to offer. Listen, God, He will grant us things to help us bring about His will. He didn't bless us and cause things to materialize in our lives so that we can be benefited and then go on. We are here to help build the kingdom. So whatever he takes us, allows us to go through. Because a lot of things in this world, God ain't got nothing to do with. All the time we try to blame God for a lot of stuff. He don't have nothing to do with all that stuff. But when we go through it, then we begin to think about it. I need to look at this again. God, real. Get to understand that He'll help us get through it. And so when this prostate cancer thing came, you know, I'd already been through some things already. And believe it or not, I was not afraid.
Yes.
I never got afraid. I'm just amazing. I never got afraid. I went to the doctor. I had surgery on Wednesday morning, April 4th, 2001. I went home April 2nd, 2001, that evening. One of my dear friends, who is now Bishop James Walker, was a pastor there in Hartford. He came by to see me on the next day. But normally people stay in the hospital 3-4 days after that surgery. Back then, I don't know how they do now.
Yes.
He came to see me, and I'm putting my clothes on, getting ready to go home. He said, man, what's happening to you? I said, I'm going home. Shucks, I ain't standing here. And let me tell you something else. And while I was at the hospital, that's why I say this thing is about faith. It's about faith. It's about faith. Because after the surgery, I needed to, the doctor told me, he said, no, you can walk as soon as you get a chance. Yeah. They brought me back in the room that afternoon. And that night was the worst night I had. Oh, but I had one worse than that. But anyway, I remember the doctor told me you could get up.
Mhm.
I asked the nurse, I always tell people, sometimes some of the nurses, not everybody, everybody work in the hospital at night. They just there for emergencies, because I wanted to get up.
Mm-hmm.
And the nurse said, I talked to them, wasn't a nurse, she was a caregiver of some sort. And I said, I need to get up. She said, well, let me check to see if you can get up. Came back. She said, yeah, you can get up. And she went on back out this side, sit around the desk. So I got up on my own and walked the rest of the night. It reminded me when I was I was 16. I was coming out of the hospital. I couldn't walk then. At 16, couldn't come out. I couldn't walk. I have a cracked tooth front there where I fell trying to walk, broke that tooth. I have not had it repaired because I want to remind myself how I got it. Fell trying to walk. Well, but I was determined at 16
Yes.
to walk out of that hospital. Didn't want a wheelchair. And normally they don't let you do that. But I walked out of that hospital. And I wanted to walk out of that St. Francis Hospital in Hartsville. I walked all night long. Because I just, the faith I had, it's made me feel that I could overcome this.
So important. Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton, a ton of questions come to my mind, but I just wonder whether as you're listening to this story, and certainly Reverend Perry kicked us off about, and you've just illustrated, Bishop, hearing from the source is so much more exciting and illuminating than really listening to any movie or play. So I really want to thank you for what you've shared so far. We have about 20 minutes. But I just wonder, Reverend Perry, Reverend Clayton, if there's some concerns or questions or comments that you'd like to make, because it's been so inspiring. Reverend Perry?
Yes, thanks, Tom. Bishop Monroe, our presiding elder, Tim Howard, was also part of our ambassador program. And he shared with us about his journey, which was much, much more difficult. And, and he struggled with that for a number of years, but he believed in the science and he carried the faith with him. And he served as presiding elder in good days and bad days, and he never complained. Right. One of the things that he said to us was that he'd had the surgery, but that the people who had performed the surgery at that time did not have all the skills and techniques. And so there was some mishaps somewhere along the way. Now they have robotic surgery, which is like, the doctor's not even in the room and the robots are. So the precision work is much, much better. I think that you're absolutely right. We want programs like this so that young men who would have to make that choice could be open to the multiplicity of possibilities in terms of what would be best for them. And I know it's a hard decision, whether you do the seed implantation or the radiation or the radical surgery. But it's so important that we make that. And you make it sound so easy. It's like, it's amazing. It scares me to think that you just said, I'm doing this and that was it. It's like, I think I'd be up a wall all night and day trying to figure out what would be my best possibility. So we've talked to some doctors and they say that age matters because, like you say, you might outlive your cancer. If you 80 years old and you got prostate cancer, you might as well go ahead on and keep walking.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And then there are some younger people who might benefit more so from the surgery than from the hormone treatment, which is like the middle way for those who are like in their 60s, 65, and they'll do the hormonal treatment and the radiation. And they seem they say that the rates are about the same in terms of survival. So
excuse me, I think it's important for you to know I had the radical surgery, but I also had radiation and hormonal treatment.
Oh. Wow.
I had all three of those.
You weren't taking any chances.
Well, my doctor, he felt that they had gotten the cancer, but he wanted to be sure by doing the radiation. I took radiation every day. I think I took about 35, 36 treatments of radiation and the hormonal. Now that's the joke about the hormonal thing. I was so, I remember one Sunday, I got up in the service and all of a sudden I started sweating. I said, what in the world is that? And I said, oh, I know what that is. I said, I'm experiencing some things you ladies usually experience. I said, but mine is temporary. But that hormonal piece, I had all three of those. Oh. And the thing about it is, with the surgery they gave me, you don't see scar.
Right.
Normally they go from they did not go there. That's what makes mine so amazing. But my doctor, that's why I kept going to this man, because they went in through another way, and you never saw scar.
Wow.
And it was not robotic either. And
Wow.
And the way he did that, and with the radiation and hormonal treatment, I've had no problems at all. Now my brother, he had a PSA count of 33. What? Man. He's never had surgery either. He's done the seeds. Now, everybody else I knew that, and I'm not saying one just the other, because I think age is so important, and attitude. Attitude. That's why I talk about faith. We can, I always say, all of us can embrace faith. At the same time, there's always an element of doubt. They run together. Now, it just depends on which one you're going to allow to influence you. Faith or your doubt. Yes, you about to say something?
I guess I wanted to mention there's even been some research. Well, Reverend Perry's comment about the evolving nature of the science is so important. So if anyone is, any of the guys definitely need to get their PSA test and their reading, because when I went for my surgery, I was only up to like 5.0, but I know friends, as you say, that as well as relatives that have been much higher. But consultation with your doctor is so important. But the point I wanted to make is in terms of the mental outlook, there's been some recent research about men that have had prostate intervention, and some have become very much depressed, and others have remained optimistic afterwards. And the research does talk about your mental attitude does impact your post recovery. So much your post recovery. Now, again, it's somewhat, the research is kind of speculative in terms of assessing the state of the mind, but it's very clear. You got to really kind of understand the power of your brain and your consciousness to impact how you perceive even healing. So
Right.
I really appreciate what you've said, gentlemen. We have about 20 minutes of things that kind of come across your mind or that you want to share. It's so important at this point. Although we've mentioned various techniques, even as we speak now, that new discovery or a new methodology might take place tomorrow. So if someone is undertaking eradication or solving of the prostate problem, definitely consult with your physician, and maybe more than one physician, and maybe even two if you need to. It's an evolving nature, and I think, Bishop, the fact that it's been so evolving and that there's not one remedy kind of indicates that this is not a mysterious illness, but it's a delicate illness. It's something that does perhaps or even in terms of where the illness is located, not to get into a male situation, but where the cancer is located, should tell you that it really does impact, and I think is part of your Adam and Eve journey. What I mean is, as a man, this is something really to be aware of. Reverend Clayton, please share.
Yes. Bishop, could you please share with us the importance of men getting screened, or can you also share about some preventive care, if you could?
Well, you talk about preventive care, that's annual checkups. And screening, that is so important, particularly young. I was told by my doctor during this time I have a son. He said, particularly for Black Americans, we need to be screening early.
Yes.
Most times you get around 50 or something like that, that's time to do it. But Black Americans, you might have to go as early as 40.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're screened. And I spoke to my son about that. So it's the screening. Then I got 3 grandsons.
My.
And you need to just keep that before them, because it's very important. I've had some very close friends of mine to die of prostate cancer.
Yes.
And sometimes men are very slow about getting medical treatment with this macho feeling, whatever that is. But they're very slow about that. My brother, as I said, 33, PSA 33. He's on top of his all the time. If he get anything, he going to the doctor. But I think early screening, particularly for Black Americans,
yes,
very, very important. So my son right now, he's 44, and I said, you need to make sure that he does. Then he has another son that's 21, another's 23. We just need to be on top of that.
So important.
Tom, can I just say this?
Absolutely, please.
I met with a Yale doctor about 3 weeks ago, and he told me that in African Americans, he said what people don't look at is that there are certain outcomes for us that are different from others. And when he looked at it, he said it all had to do with the doctor that we chose, the urologist that we chose. He said, you could have one that's like a Steph, or you could have one that's like didn't make the team, but he got the degree. He said, but
Yeah, right.
they did this study at 4 or 5 major institutions, and the readings were off the chain. And so when he looked at it, he said, well, what's different? And he looked at with African Americans who had great doctors or better doctors, more informed, equipped, experienced, they had better outcomes than those that didn't. And I submit to you, hearing your story, your doctor was way above the average, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, we may want to call him to have a little conversation to see, you know, where African Americans ought to be looking, because you are his best example of his proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to your survival, and just hearing your story. I want to know, I want to meet your doctor. If I get sick, I want to call him first.
Yeah.
He's still practicing.
Yeah. And he was tremendous doctor. And you know, because if you remember in my offset when I was speaking, I was concerned about the doctor I had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very concerned about it. And I spoke to one of my church members. She was a nurse. He said, well, let me get you somebody. And I had been in Connecticut long, but she put me on to this doctor, and he put me on, the doctor and the urologist. They were just tremendous. And of course, I stayed with them even when I moved to North Carolina. I would come back. But you don't find people like that that's easy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Bishop and Reverend Clayton and Reverend Perry, we have about 10 minutes. I just want to throw in and ask kind of a comment from everyone about the role of the Black church in promoting awareness. We can't state this too much, in my opinion, about the role of the Black church in promoting awareness about healthcare and also participation in clinical trials, because treatments and discoveries and cures are going to occur, and we need to be part of that historical journey. So I'm just curious if the three of you want to comment about the role of the Black church.
I think it's important that leader has to be confident in him or herself, himself, when I'm talking about they'll be confident enough to engage in that ministry.
Yes.
As I said, I had sessions when I was Metropolitan. Everybody knew what I had experienced. But it didn't bother me that they knew, because for some reason, I just felt that it was important for me to be an example for the people.
Yes.
And I think normally when I watch ministries evolve and people moving people to the right, it's because they have been a victim themselves. And they understand gravity of what's going on with that particular concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it. Are you being connected to somebody? Because we don't always embrace every concern that comes by us, only those that affect us to a point where we feel we need to do something. And that's unfortunate, but that's what happens.
Reverend Clayton, I noticed that you had your hand up.
I'm in agreement with the bishop there that the leader must have confidence in his or herself to be able to share some things. One of the major roles that our church need to have is an openness. We need to be able to let people know what's going on. Because just like Bishop said earlier, once he shared the fact that he was going through this prostate cancer, he discovered that there are other men that had the same problem. And, you know, it's a lot easier when you're carrying the load with somebody else than you're trying to do it by yourself. So it's very important that we share with others, not just prostate, but whatever we're going through, so that the masses can benefit from it. We're not here for ourselves, but we're here to encourage other people to take charge of their health as well.
Well, you have to be courageous to be a leader. I often tell folks, you can't lead people when you're scared of them. So you have to be courageous to lead people, because you will cause them to be uncomfortable. So a lot of times when you try to take them to a place or a space they're not familiar with, so you have to always try to help them get there, but you got to be courageous yourself. Introduce something that people don't even want to talk about.
Bishop, let me just stop you right there, because what you're saying now is what we've been trying to do. Presiding Elder Howard went to Yale and brought us the Hartford district, and we had this conversation about minorities and health outcomes and health disparities. And he organized us so that we could have this program and other programs to talk to our constituency about the importance of taking charge of your health. So Dr. Crenshaw came to us, and he was talking about prostate cancer. And he said, how can we get the word out? So our team sat down with him and said, listen, we got to ask the women, the mamas, the wives, the daughters to go to their male counterparts and say, you need to get your PSA check. You need to get a regular checkup. So that was that started us. And so not only do we do that with prostate cancer, we do it with diabetes, we do it with asthma, we do it with chronic heart failure. We're looking at DNA and genetics. We got people like Morrison, who's on our team, and one of your Sonia Campbell, Dr. Campbell down in South Carolina, and Wilbur Davis. And now we're gonna pull you on our team.
That's right. That's right.
So we can make this, we can make it go, because I know how bureaucracy works. And like you say, not everybody is a leader who says they're a leader. And sometimes it's very hard to get through the door with the message. So we really appreciate your being on the show, because you are a leader. And we thank you for your presentation here today.
Absolutely.
I look forward to working with you in the future. See, we got you now.
Well,
nationally and internationally. Harry's going to play the music in a few seconds. So Bishop, I want to give you the chance for last words. You have about 30 seconds. And just thank you so much, as Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton have mentioned.
I'm thankful. I've been engaged with Reverend Clayton and Reverend Perry for a while. Just happened to be able to have a word to say. Right now, I'm in two places here, and got people waiting on me. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
We're so grateful to have you, and God bless you. And everybody remember, making the impossible possible with God is, you guys can remember that phrase, making the impossible possible with God, one of Bishop Monroe's favorite quotes. Harry, we're all set. Thanks to you, and thanks to our listeners.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up.